The other common one and similar in that stuff just keeps changing without people wanting it to change is if the input keeps changing on the
Yeah,
TV. Just yeah, I mean, it could be you're turning it on and it's randomly going back to the same one as before, or maybe you're watching your favorite show and bang, you're back onto I don't know, black screen.
that, as we discussed earlier, is probably one of the
Hmm.
most common issues because it's a feature that's turned on to these TVs by default. It's called CEC, Consumer Electronic Control. It has a different name depending on every manufacturer, but they do tell you it's called CEC, usually in parentheses right next to their
Hmm.
proprietary name. LG, it's called Simplink. Sony, it's called Bravia Link, and on Samsung, it's called AnyNet, AnyNet Plus. Yep. So turn that off. Turn that off on the device. Turn that off on the TV, and you should not have that problem anymore. If you do, change the HDMI cable and then re-verify that CEC is still off. One issue that I've seen many times is on Sony. When you plug in a Sony device, like a Sony Blu-ray player, a Sony
Hmm.
soundbar, or a PlayStation, you will often find that it just automatically turns on the setting by itself on itself and on the TV. Even if you previously went in and manually turned it off, it will automatically turn it back on. To that point, you cannot turn it back off while a Sony device is plugged in. You have to turn off the Sony, you have to unplug the Sony device, turn it off then turn it off on the TV, plug it back in, then turn it off on the
Yeah,
device.
sometimes.
It's convoluted. It's just a way they really want that
Hmm.
setting on because it's a feature and it's supposed to do things automatically. But anything that is automatic can make mistakes, and that can simply be
Yeah,
it.
and is that sort of it? If it generally, if you're dealing with some Sony devices, it's a case of okay, great, I've paid all this money for this fantastic new, device, but going to have to just really choose carefully when I want to actually turn it on.
I would ultimately say that unless you have a problem, there's no reason to turn it off. But if you do have a problem, these days, CEC's come a long way. I used to just turn it off 100% of the time, every single time, without a doubt, because it became a very big
Yeah.
nuisance because it was the majority of all of our repair calls after doing an installation would be to go out and fix that, which is just
Hmm.
turn off a setting, which is quite a bit of, unfortunately, a waste of time for us because we had other things to do. The consumer, the customer had other things to do other than waste their time having to take off of work for somebody to come out to push some
Yeah.
buttons. Sony is not the only one, for sure. I have a big issue with my LG TV where if I unplug an HDMI port, an HDMI cable, and plug it back in, it just automatically turns that setting back on. Simply turns on, it renames my HDMI ports to the device that it sent it. I have the setting off on all of my devices because I do not need it. It does not offer any benefit to me, but it does turn itself back on every single time that I unplug something and plug it back in, which is a lot of changing things. There's a lot of I gotta go through all these menus to
Hmm.
change this setting. To that point, again, if you have a problem, there's a problem to fix. If you don't, there's no reason to dig through and look to try and change it. It has come a long way. It works a lot better these days and should be a lot less common.
Hmm.
And if you like the feature existing and working for you, but you find that it's not working correctly, you can try to change your HDMI cable and see
Hmm.
if that works. And then you can usually turn it off on the device itself. So if you like it being on one thing but not on another, turn it off on the device that you don't want it on. Or some TVs offer per input for that stuff. You can try to do that. There's plenty of good articles on that stuff. We could do an
Hmm.
article on
Yeah.
that too. It could be a good place to go to find your answer there. But Turn it off. If you continue having a problem and you don't feel like you need it, change the HDMI cable, make sure that that's not the problem. And then if you don't have a problem, you probably wouldn't have come here
Yeah,
anyway.
so you're all
But
good.
if you did, for whatever reason, there's no reason to
Yeah,
change it.
great. And just one small addition to that. When you say change your HDMI cable, is that just a fresh cable, or are you looking at maybe getting one of the more modern types? Like maybe you needed, I don't know, a slightly more updated one, or one that's got a higher speed type of thing? Or do you just mean a fresh cable of any kind?
That's a really great follow up there. No, you definitely want to get a good enough cable. You can't just buy anything. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad electronics and electronic stuff on Amazon, AliExpress, Alibaba, all the
Hmm.
Temu, all the different third party marketplaces that you can go to, like Walmart's website's a third party marketplace now. Unfortunately, you can buy
Hmm.
anything, you can sell anything. So you can say you've got the top of the line, best HDMI out there, sell it for $20 less than the competitor, but really you just sold them e-waste. That was just a cable that was no better than the
Yeah.
$10 cable, but the way you market it or at least provide information on the page. So you do have to be very careful with that stuff. Not all the cables are built equally. We've had HDMI for 20 plus years at
Mm.
this point. There's certainly been a lot of changes over the years. And if you have a brand new 4K TV that you want to watch at the best quality that you can, or even just a 4K TV in general, you could have bought it 10 years ago, first generation. You still need a better cable because the cables took a little longer to get their revisions than the TVs did. So even if the cable's newer than the TV, still could resolve a lot of issues. With that being said, you probably want to spend about $20 per 4 feet of cable,
Okay.
but really probably closer to $30. That's USD. I don't really have the best comparison for other currency. That being said, that kind of cable would be most often today, you'll find the best one being HDMI 2.1. That supports, I believe, 40 gigabits per second. So you may see that written somewhere in the product description, or you may see HDMI 2.1. You may see it say it supports 8K. There's no way to, unfortunately, prevent yourself from buying something that lied to
Hmm.
you. But you can do your best and look for the right things to try and make the right decision. And great news, you buy it from Amazon, you can return it right back to them. So if you did buy something that was not what you
Hmm.
expected, send it back, try a different cable. I know it might seem like a lot of time that you're sending things back and getting them, but the cable could, like you said, you have a lower quality one, just any old cable could be the
Yeah.
problem, could be the reason it keeps switching.
I guess sometimes the only sort of common feature between like the cable you want and these cheap ones is that they're the same shape. Other than that, they're almost entirely different products.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, and it can also, I guess, be worthwhile. Even if you're not sure it's the right one, as you say, you can always buy it, test it. If it fixes the problem, great. If not, you just return it. And a lot of big supermarkets and things these days, they'll just actually return it for you. You don't even need to put it back in a box as long as you've got the packaging. Super, super easy.